I'm gonna start this review with an anecdote. I was walking back from the bowling alley with some friends, and the conversation steered into the question of what we each believed was the worst way to die. I myself was adamant in thinking that to be slowly eaten alive is the worst way to die. This movie, for me, was proof of that fact. So, what kind of film was this? Well, it's your standard summer flick. Lots of drinking, lots of partying, lots of bikinis, and an occasional lack of bikinis as well. Oh, and there's some shallow characters, stereotypical plot development, some really surprising cameos. Oh, and did I forget the horde of prehistoric flesh-eating piranhas that are released from an underground lake? You know, for a movie like this, there is actually a lot of time and big words devoted to dealing with the backstory of these monsters. They actually try to make the backstory sound plausible to an audience that wasn't asking for such sense. Now, of course, it doesn't make sense, but in terms of the usual movies in this vein, it maintains the illusion pretty well. Almost like they actually did some research or something. But that might be granting them a bit too much credit. So yeah, we get these prehistoric piranhas released from an underground lake that has been completely untouched for millions of years, allowing these monsters to continue surviving. How did these things survive and nothing else? Well, they ate everything else first, apparently, and then started to eat each other with a vigor that would make Darwin piss himself. Meanwhile, we get some standard characters of this genre. The goody-two-shoes protagonist with a not-so-subtle crush on his easygoing lady friend, for example. Oh, and the goody-two-shoes has a pair of siblings. And as we all know, siblings in this kind of movie usually end up getting people killed by needing to be rescued somehow. The goody-two-shoes runs into a British sexpot played by the lovely Kelly Brook. Oh, and there's the coked-up amateur porn maker played by Jerry O'Connell, reminding us more than ever that the fat kid from Stand By Me died a long time ago. The movie has a few more heroic roles, casting the former girlfriend from Karate Kid and the mob boss from Pulp Fiction. Yes, Elizabeth Shue and Ving Rhames play sheriff and deputy respectively. The sheriff is also the mother of the goody-two-shoes. Oh, and there's some scientist who comes in to check out the lake, and after his disposable friends get eaten, he decides to help the sheriff save everyone else. Going into the exact plot would be a spoiler and a waste of time. So let's just say the piranhas break loose and wreak havoc. I mean, it's not like they put in that CGI earthquake for nothing. How else would there suddenly be a way for the piranhas to escape their underground prison? So we get a film that tries its utmost to be as shockingly gory as it can. We get the typical youths not listening to the authorities, and then they suffer for that tenfold. So what happens? Detailed looks at what a person would look like while being eaten alive. Oh, and we get lots of other interesting ways to see people die. Now, I'm aware that some of my favorite movies have murder and killing in them, and sometimes the killing gets pretty extreme. But this is just gratuitous. It's got the mentality of torture porn. Typical that Eli Roth makes a cameo. Oh, and speaking of cameos, we get Richard Dreyfuss in the opening scene, literally reprising his role from Jaws. And of course we get Christopher Lloyd playing what else but an expert on whatever field this movie needs an expert in. Fish, in this case. He even has a fossil of the ancient piranha that just happens to be on his shelf in the next room. The most general reaction I get from people about this movie is either that it was awesome, or that they hadn't seen it. I used to fall into the latter category, and a big part of me wishes that hadn't changed. The movie is filled with cliches, all to serve the purpose of showing us gore for the sake of a summer blockbuster. I suppose Steven Spielberg is to be partially blamed for all this. I mean, it all started with Jaws back in the day. But this movie takes away all the serious undertones of Jaws and instead plays up the more commercial aspects of the movie. And while I do not in any way think this movie holds a candle to Jaws, I will say this movie works on the level it was trying to go for. Eli Roth fans will like it, gore fans will like it, And people who like to see ridiculousness will love the crap out of this movie. Hell, I got a kick out of Christopher Lloyd's cameo, despite my own personal disgust at watching excruciating death for the sake of entertainment and humor. But I think I've already said more than there could possibly be said about this film. All that's left to say is that I just wasn't meant to be an audience to this film. And I really think it's amusing to think that of all the film reviews I've done, this is the one I actually got paid to do.